The biggest additions to the Bengals roster and team this offseason have been on the coaching staff. So, which coaches have the most pressure going into this season? Let's break it all down right now on Enter the Jungle. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Enter the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller. Catch us every single Tuesday on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk, where over 55,000 Bengals fans have hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check us out, well, wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple and Spotify, and grab a garage beer today because the weather, well, it's hot in the Cincinnati area, which means it's perfect garage beer lime weather. Andrew, I think a lot of Bengals fans drank a lot of garage beer last year watching the coaching staff try to get more out of the defense, try to get more out of a team that obviously underachieved and finished 9-8 for a second straight year. So this is going to be a coach-centric episode. First things first, how much pressure on the whole do you think is on Zac Taylor, the rest of these coaches going into this season, given the fact that they haven't added as much talent from a team standpoint as I wanted or you wanted or most people watching wanted?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. You've secured Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and as much as we criticize this team for not making many additions to the roster, like you said, in free agency, obviously, I feel like there's another side to that, another angle to consider. Like, this team has operated as though they're only a few moves away from making a deep postseason run. Like, they're willing to gamble on their coaching changes. They're willing to gamble with Joe Burrow as their quarterback, knowing that every year with him as your quarterback, they should be maximizing this team's opportunity for a championship. Add the fact that the rest of your starters are getting older and will certainly be more expensive. Like, these coaches have a lot of pressure on them.
They do. And I think it's interesting because there's the Zac Taylor hot seat conversation. And we've had that in the past. I think right now it's more of who has the most pressure. And I look at it and there's a lot of new coaches on the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, obviously it's the head coach, Zac Taylor, calling the plays. Dan Pitcher back for year 2. But Scott Peters is that big addition as the offensive line coach. And so when I think of, all right, who has the most pressure, I think you could make a case for Zac Taylor. I think you could make a case for new defensive coordinator Al Golden. I think you could make a case for offensive line coach Scott Peters. When I bring that up, which coach on the Bengals staff has the most pressure on them entering this season? What's your instant reaction? Who's your answer?
I mean, you want to start, I think, from the top in this sort of scenario, because for me, Al Golden, Scott Peters, like, call it what you want, but ultimately they're walking into a very similar situation, if not worse, than the coaches that they had prior in 2024. So I don't want to sit there and say setting them up for failure, but as far as pressure, I feel like Zac Taylor is the one who should be feeling the most pressure. Again, you're risking valuable years of the Joe Burrow era, and Zac Taylor is at the highest level of the coaching staff, and no coach has been around for the Burrow era any longer than he has. So do I think Zac Taylor's going to lose his job if they fail to make the playoffs in 2025? Like, I guess it depends on how they fail, if they fail, but I don't see the Bengals firing Taylor. Like, they've kept coaches for less goodwill than what Taylor has given the team. But however, at some point, the Bengals, this team, the front office, they could have to face the decision between Taylor and Burrow as far as how they see their future. And I think Zac feels that pressure. So I think he should be the one feeling the most pressure.
He should be, and I think he is. And you can look at it in a bunch of different ways, but the training camp schedule came out, at least for the fans. And what was notable there? The 10 a.m. start time. That's never happened. Never happened. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been covering the team, at least. It has always been afternoon practices. And this isn't just Zac Taylor. This is dating back to Marvin. I mean, we're talking 2016 on, basically the past decade. And I know it goes beyond that, where you're talking about afternoon practices. So that's one thing. 2 is how often Zac Taylor has brought up the fast start and the need to start fast. It was literally the day they fired Lou Anarumo. Like, we need to start better. We know that these are changes we needed to make. And not just Lou, obviously Frank and some other coaches. But I think that's why it is Zac. And it should be Zac, because at some point the Bengals internally met and they said, all right, well, Joe Burrow's having an awesome year, career high year. Jamar Chase, same thing. T. Higgins plays 12 games but has 10 touchdowns, a career high. And you look up and you're 9-8 and your season essentially ended. I get it was fun, that 5-game winning streak, but it essentially ended on your home field against Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers. And you fought a 4-8 on the year, and your defense can't stop anyone, and Joe Burrow is doing his part, and you still lose. And so what Zac clearly, I think, relayed is, hey, if we get the right defensive coordinator, if we figure out this offensive line coaching spot, we can be much improved. Boom, right there. Those are huge upgrades that are going to lead to wins. So if that doesn't work, if that doesn't lead to wins, well, you're not going to be looking at Joe Burrow. You're not going to look at Jamar Chase. You're not going to look at things and say, oh, well, Al Golden just can't coach. Like you're not going to do those things again because you already did them with Lou, and Lou was more proven in the NFL than Al Golden is. Doesn't mean he's better, especially in 2025, but certainly more proven. And so to go that route, you got to get results. And so the answer has to be Zac Taylor. Doesn't mean he's going to get fired. I don't even want to go there because there's a segment of the fan base that wants to fire Zac and has always wanted to fire Zac and didn't even change their opinion when they went to the Super Bowl. I was a fire Zac guy in 2020. I'm not going to run from it or hide from it. They stunk in 2019. He looked lost in most of 2020, but they figured out in 2021. I think he's a better coach now than he was in 2020. And so I'm willing to, again, give him a chance. He's earned some equity. That equity is running out a bit now after back-to-back sequences of missing the playoffs. So Zac Taylor's absolutely the answer. I want to talk more about the assistant coaches, but yeah, the pressure should be on Zac, and rightfully so. I think he has 2 years left on his contract, so it's time, Zac. You got to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I know, like you said, we don't want to really go down the path of the firing and, well, is his job secure, this and that.
You can. I
want to go somewhere with what you're saying because I agree in that there's something to be said for people that have a desire to win, and you certainly want to win when you're coaching in professional sports, and they're wired a certain way. To be a head coach, especially in the NFL, you can say what you want about temperament, personality, things like that. They all vary across the league, but at the end of the day, they want to win. They want to win championships. They want to feel that accomplished, of course. And I think among any of those coaches, Zac, again, should be the one feeling the most pressure. Whether that's pressure at the end of the day, he puts his head down on the pillow and he's thinking, did I do enough? Or if bigger picture, he's looking around and going, I feel like we were so close and I did X, Y, Z, whether it was adding coaches and making changes. He is probably internally feeling more pressure than anybody because he's seen what we see. He's talked about what we've talked about. He is trying to get to the dance once again. And that's the goal. That's the number one goal for players, coaches. So yes, that's the pressure I feel like with Zac Taylor. Now, whether that leads to him and his job being at risk, that's a whole nother story to your point. But that's where I come from when I say pressure.
Mm-hmm. I get it. And the reason I don't want to go down that path is because expectations, I did a video on this on Monday. Expectations are playoff. You better get to the playoffs. The kid at Fanatics Fan Fest or Fanatics Fest or whatever the hell they call it, he's right. You better get to the playoffs this year. We better be talking in mid-January about, Paycor Stadium playoffs, or the opposite, going on the road. Regardless, we better be talking about football games that matter in January. And a big part of that are the other two coaches I mentioned, the new faces. There's a lot of pressure on them. Who has more pressure? I didn't know you were going to agree with Zac. But up next, Al Golden, Scott Peters. Who has more pressure going into the season on them to get the most out of what they have? We will answer that question and much, much more as Enter the Jungle rolls on right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien, and you can catch us every single Tuesday on the YouTube channel Cincinnati Bengals Talk weekly on FanDuel Sports Network. And there's a lot of pressure on the coaching staff. We both agree that Zac Taylor should have the most pressure on him of any of the coaches. Makes sense. Comes with the territory when you're the head coach. I'm sure he knows that. But two new faces that the Bengals are banking on, that Zac Taylor's banking on, that the entire organization is banking on to be better and to lead their units this year. Defensive coordinator Al Golden, offensive line coach Scott Peters. Both guys have gotten a ton of praise. We've had Miles Murphy on. We've had multiple offensive linemen that we've talked to. Everybody loves Al. Everybody loves Scott. Dax Hill last week praising Al. Who has more pressure to perform and to get their units to play better than they did last year? Is it Scott Peters or is it Al Golden?
Oh, let me start by saying this is a really tough one, first of all.
Yeah.
Al Golden is maybe he's probably in the most interesting position this season. And I'm not answering this. I'm going somewhere with it. Like, think about it. The Bengals, their defense was a failure in 2024. You fire your defensive coordinator, okay? You hire Al Golden. You run it back with the same defense for the most part. I mean, you bring back BJ Hill, Joseph Osai, even Cam Sample, okay. You added TJ Slayton, but you didn't add anyone in free agency to help one of the worst pass rushing defenses in the league. That, I'm not saying setting up for failure, but my point is just that it's really intriguing to me that they're putting all that faith in Al Golden. If that equates to the most pressure, that's probably my pick. Scott Peters, though, similar circumstance. I mean, you kind of are running it back. You know what I mean? You could say what you want about some of the additions, but they're not huge impact players. Al Golden, though, coming right from, college football and being at defensive coordinator, what's worst case? He gets a demotion. He probably has a head coaching aspirations if he does really well doing this. Mm-hmm. Scott Peters maybe comes. It's really tough. I think it's maybe Al Golden, but I could almost flip a coin on this one, man. I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'm not struggling. It's Scott Peters.
Okay, go. Let me hear.
Peters. Al Golden got the 17th pick in the draft. He got the 49th pick in the draft. So he gets two guys that should probably start right away. Shamar Stewart, Demetrius Knight Jr. Knight is going to be the starter for sure. I think Shamar will obviously, I would say pretty good chance he starts as well. So you're talking about your two best draft assets. Boom. That's going to help your pass rush. That's going to help hopefully your tackling ability. What missed tackles? Shout out Jermaine Pratt.
Every episode we're going to throw that line out there.
Yeah, absolutely you are. And so that's it. You also trim the fat some. You get rid of, guys like Von Bell that certainly didn't feel like they were helping last year. And like, I get it. I see the vision. Now, if it doesn't work, will people wonder about Al Golden? Absolutely. I'm not saying there's not pressure on him. But Scott Peters, one, he's not just brought in to develop Amarius Mims, who still needs to develop. He's got to develop really any of these guys outside of Orlando Brown Jr. and Ted Karras have to be developed. Every single one of them. So whether it's keeping Cordell Volson, obviously Amarius Mims is going to start, but still needs to develop a ton. He is not a finished product, and he's got a really, really high ceiling, but you still got to get more out of him. Cordell Volson, they keep him around. They have him take a pay cut. They re-sign Cody Ford, so it's the familiar faces thing. And they don't get him a first-round pick in the draft. Fine, the draft didn't line up. And then the second round, Tate Ratledge is there. They say, no, we're going to go with Dylan Fairchild in round 3. And so you better get something out of Dylan because he's starting. And maybe Al Golden doesn't get a lot. And Mike Hodges, the linebackers coach now, the new linebackers coach, doesn't get a lot out of Demetrius Knight as a rookie. And we're like, man, maybe they should have kept Jermaine. Maybe that is a thought by week 8. But if anyone is saying, well, you got to put Cordell in at any point this year, if it's not due to injury, then it's going to be like, well, why in the world did you not get a better guard option for Scott Peters to work with? And then on the other side, I haven't even gotten to the other side. You move on from Alex Kappa, who would be the offensive line equivalent to Jermaine Pratt in a different way, but similar, veteran, probably past his prime, but still potentially capable of helping. Now you're talking about a journeyman in Lucas Patrick competing with Cody Ford. Or maybe, and this is what I want to see, and I'll do a video on this at some point on Cincinnati Bengals Talk, Jalen Rivers getting in the mix, a rookie 5th rounder. Like, that's what we're talking about. And so that's why the pressure of protecting the franchise is on a guy that doesn't have any high picks this year. They haven't added any high picks. A 3rd-round pick is high-ish for a guard, but it's still, it felt different when they waited till round 3 for a guard. They didn't sign a plug-and-play starter at guard. And the 1st-round pick from last year, who I think has a huge ceiling, he's going to be awesome, but you still got to get him there. So there's a lot of pressure on Scott Peters to deliver because this offensive line has to be better. They have to be more consistent. The Bengals are going to be an elite offense this year. The offensive line has to be more consistent in a bunch of different areas. And I don't know if they did enough to give Scott Peters what he needs to get that done this season.
I hear you, and it's exactly why I'm struggling with this one. I agree that just the fact alone that he's tasked with protecting franchise quarterback, being Joe Burrow, that enough is a lot of pressure.
Whew.
But you talk about development. There's a lot of pressure on Al Golden for development across the board. It's a big reason Lou Anarumo was not there, I assume, is just the fact that all of these players just didn't really seem, we see potential, we see a potential ceiling, we see this huge upside, and nobody is realizing it. And there's inconsistency, and maybe Al Golden fixes that. There's a lot of pressure on development for him. I agree with you on Scott Peters in development, but it's tough because if you want to go from a just pure starter standpoint, okay, 2/5 of the group that you're coaching are reliable, consistent, solid at worst. Amarius Mims showing great flashes. You could even probably argue that 3/5 you're feeling very, very good about. Al Golden, big picture, it's a lot there. It's a lot there. But just again, the fact that you're protecting Joe Burrow, that alone is moving you up the ranks as far as pressure.
There's a joke about how Lou would have asked for Demetrius Knight in round 2 and then still wanted to keep Jermaine to start. There's got to be a joke in there. Anyways, from the coaching staff to an area of Paycor Stadium, I'm there almost every day during the season. And yet Andrew over the weekend got to go to a place that I don't get to go to at Paycor Stadium. We will discuss that coming up next. Welcome back to Enter the Jungle. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. And Andrew, well, he got to go to Paycor Stadium last Saturday over the weekend. And, well, lucky you. You get to go to Paycor Stadium and get to hang out. I'm not even allowed in right now. And you got to go to a place I've been trying to go to for years, literally since COVID. And they won't let me in. They won't let me train there. And it's really frustrating. You walk through the Bengals locker room, which I'm allowed in, but the weight room, which I'm really jealous about. Did you get a lift in?
Oh, no. Did I get a lift in? James. No. Walking through really anywhere, but especially walking through the weight room, everything was roped off. I've toured so many places, like the Winchester Mansion. If you go to any historic site, you would have thought that that's what was going on
Biltmore?
here. Oh, it was.
Biltmore?
Yeah, I've been there. Yes, same thing. I think I had more freedom in Biltmore than in that weight room. It was crazy. I mean, they let you in, man. They had personnel watching. I was almost afraid to even take out my phone and start filming. I thought I was going to be told I couldn't film anything. It was locked down, man. But yeah, no, it was impressive. For as much as you hear things, and we like to joke around about report cards and failing and food and other reasons, the reality is, from a facility standpoint, I can see why they wanted people to come and see it. It generates, I think, good word of mouth, good impression on the fan base. It almost felt like they just want to be like, hey, look how cool this is here, and look how great we're doing here, but stay behind that rope, by the way.
It
was like an open house.
Been told that plenty, but here's what I'll say. I'm jealous that you're in the weight room. Because
I can't believe you've never been in there.
I have asked multiple Bengals officials, and I was in there like 12 years ago, 13 years ago, but like so long ago that it doesn't count. But no, I need to get in the weight room. Need to get in the weight room. They need to let me work out there. It would be really convenient. So Zach, if you see this, I just said I didn't want to have the hot seat conversation. How about you get me some passes to work out when the guys aren't in there? I appreciate that. I haven't gone the Zac Taylor route. I've gone a bunch of other routes. I haven't gone the Zac Taylor route yet.
I would just say I have a suggestion if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
Here's the pitch. You go to whoever you need to go to, the Bengals front office. You could talk to them about this. Hey, I know you're having this open house. You're corralling these people through. You got personnel making sure they're not crossing line. While you're doing that, it's kind of empty looking. I'll come in there, no charge, and I'll demonstrate what the weight room looks like.
I would have totally done that. I would have done it. However long the tour was, I would have worked out there all day too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, easy. Would have been easy.
I would have suggested it there had I thought of it and had it look like anyone was interested to see what I had to say. I thought I would be scolded if I started talking to anybody working there.
It'd been like, but they cut Cade York. Did they sign another kicker? That isn't Evan. Who in the world is that guy?
Yeah, that's right.
Speaking of, I mentioned Zac earlier. Zac has quite the phrase in the Bengals weight room that you have to see to believe. That's next. Welcome back to End of the Jungle. I'm James Rapien. He's Andrew Fox Miller. And boy, oh boy, when it comes to weight room phrases, I think fat takes the cake. That's right. The Bengals are fat. They want fat to be their phrase. And honestly, I don't think it's just this year, Andrew. I think this is kind of like one of the team slogans under Zac Taylor that has stuck. And that's why you saw it on the weight room.
Oh yeah. I mean, it looked like it was prominent, it looked permanent. They put it up on the wall. It made rounds, went somewhat viral, at least with the Bengals fans, about a week or so ago. And I went in the tour and I saw it. It felt like that was the main draw anymore. I went in there and I felt like I was visiting sacred ground because it was the fat acronym up on the wall. Look,
yeah,
I mean,
I think it's interesting. So it says a Bengal is PHAT, fat, physical, hungry, accountable teammate. So a Bengal is physical, a Bengal is hungry, a Bengal is accountable, a Bengal is a teammate. I get the logic. I do. I think it's interesting. I don't know. It's kind of funny, but you know.
I think whether you like it or not, like Liam Cohn on new coach for the Jaguars has fast, and I'm not going to break all these down. When Matt Eberflus was the head coach of the Bears, he had hits. The Bengals have fat.
Honestly, though, Eberflus fired. The Bengals better beat the Jags week 2. Fat may reign supreme. All of these coaches have these. Marvin Lewis had run on your own gas in 2016, I believe it was, 2017, whatever. It doesn't matter. You know what matters? The playoffs. Get there. He's Andrew Fox Miller. I'm James Rapien. That's going to do it for us. We will talk to you soon. And as always, thank you so much for watching End of the Jungle.